Hey everybody! It's Sunday, some fucking date of the year, and sometime at night, and this is Real in the Field Goals, where we get to talk about the Seahawks after every game. This was a pretty good idea, I think, to have to go somewhere and talk about the Seahawks after every game, because that could never turn out to be a horrible situation and feeling. uh, Real in the Field Goals is brought to you by the Ballard Agency, as always. 425-454-3510, and tell them that Field Goal sent you. So, speaking of Field Goals, it is a website where we write about the Seahawks, and we have this podcast where we talk about the Seahawks. But after like the last 8 games, I'm feeling like maybe I should pitch Danny on writing about something else. Can we maybe, I would much rather do maybe a movie podcast or something like that, and not have to talk about Seahawks ever again.
Something that's like less emotionally devastating.
Right.
Ish.
Just draining and awful feeling to have to talk about this team. It would be one thing maybe if it was the Browns or the Raiders. Then you would just like sort of have fun with all these losses, and you wouldn't expect, such this team to. It's not so much that they're just getting their asses kicked; they're winning every single game. So you should expect them to win all of these games, and then they come out and they find ways to lose. It's sort of like the opposite of how they played in 2012 and 2013, which is that they would be losing games and find ways to win.
Right, and this has always kind of been the Seahawks MO. It's always close. It's always, comes down to the wire. But the Seahawks over the last couple of years have managed to win a lot of these games. Tons of them.
Yeah.
And this year, for whatever reason, whether it's scheme or just execution or maybe there really is like this overall psychological like shell-shockedness that happened after the Super Bowl, and now there's like this self-doubt creeping in, and you get really tight when the fourth quarter comes around. You're gonna freaking lose or whatever. You're gonna give it away, and it's gonna be terrible. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's just kind of this crazy weird thing. This happens in sports, where I feel like the psychological factor is definitely playing a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. I felt like in the fourth quarter this week, I thought that the Seahawks, their design and their offense, it seemed like very reactionary to all the criticisms they've had of not being able to win in the fourth quarter. So now they are sort of playing in a certain way of not to lose, and I think that after the Carolina had pulled to within 3, on the next drive, the first 4 or 5 plays were passing plays, which I realized it's not even so much that they should have run the ball to run down the clock. There was 4 minutes left, and the Panthers had all their timeouts, and it's not so much that, but this used to be a team where the identity was running the football, and if you looked at, say, the way that they came back against the Packers last year in the last 4 minutes, they were still running the football, and it was just it's hard because I love Russell Wilson, but some of the way that he's playing and reacting to the pass rush and not being able, it's awful. It's terrible. The way that he just ducks and runs so quickly when it's like, wow, you gained 3 yards or you gained 6 yards. Like, I get it, but you were only back there for 2 fucking seconds. So it's like right there, and it's like nobody's even there was one time when he ran the ball and he gained 7 yards, and it was like there was nobody anywhere near him. And as soon as he got up to the line of scrimmage, it's like he pump faked for a half a second and then went. And it's like nobody's close to sacking you right now. I don't give a shit about 7 yards. If you're that wide open and you can now maybe wait 3-4 seconds to throw the ball, somebody should be open. So that was my feeling with Russell Wilson and the way that I don't think he's reacting very well to the pressure anymore. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been a thing that it's not new necessarily, where when pressure comes from the outside, he has this tendency to, his first reaction is to run rather than to, do what most quarterbacks do that don't have the mobility, which is to move around in the pocket and do that kind of thing where you keep your eyes downfield, move up in the pocket, and try and get a throw off. What Wilson does a lot is he moves up, and as soon as the pressure comes from the outside, he like runs. He like runs straight forward. And so like what teams have been doing is sending a lot of pressure from the outside, looping their guys around out wide, so it makes Wilson step up and in the pocket, which is where he's, it's a disadvantage because he is, 5'11", and that is a real thing. So what's been happening is, he's been sensing that pressure, trying to run up the middle, and then they were collapsing in that like gap in the middle and getting him on sacks. So that's happened a lot this year. But the other thing that's happened a little bit is, and I commented kind of jokingly about this on Twitter, is he's sensing that pressure and almost immediately like dropping his head down and dropping his eyes from downfield. So he's almost in like, I'm about to get hit form rather than like trying to keep the play alive. And that's partly on him, and that's partly on him just getting hit a lot, and that's kind of like a natural human tendency. So you can distribute the blame from the offensive line to Wilson just not doing what he needs to do. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just frustrating because it kind of the fourth quarter collapse again, kind of like it overrules what was another kind of encouraging day from Wilson in many respects. And again, it's just like last week, like 3/4 of the game, if they finished, you're talking about it's a whole different narrative, obviously. So like 3/4 of the game, the Seahawks looked like the Seahawks. Those are the games that they end up winning typically last year, and then the last couple of years. And you come away feeling really good about it and all that, and they play it close, and that's kind of their style. They limit possessions and all that. But now when the Seahawks are coming out on the losing end of these games, it's like, it just changes the whole narrative, of course, and which makes total sense. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, nobody gives a shit if you're good for 3/4. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, right. If that's what's going to happen, then you're bad. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't be good for 3/4, bad for 1/4, and expect to still be good if you lose the game. So, it's like last week or, earlier last week when Earl Thomas said that he hadn't prepared or whatever, and then you come out and, Earl's all over the field in the beginning, and he has the interception, and it's like, oh, and this week he prepared, but then, okay, let's wait and see what happens in the fourth quarter. Then let's judge it. And then what happened? On the game-losing play, there's Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, and Cam Chancellor all just looking at each other like, which one of us was supposed to take care of the best fucking player on the field, basically. Like, that he's just wide open, and it's pretty wild that three of the most talented players in the NFL could all just be out that far out of position. I don't know what happened. Obviously, maybe someone has said what happened, but it's it's a pathetic loss, and it's a pathetic way to start 2-4. You said Russell Wilson 5-11, and the Seahawks seem to be headed towards 5-11 too. So I don't know. How did you feel about the absence of Bobby Wagner and how much of a difference that would make?
I mean, it obviously did make a difference. I haven't looked at the final stats, but the Seahawks got run on a lot, especially early on. And that, I think, had something to do with Bobby Wagner being out. And then also, Kevin Pierre-Louis got picked on a couple of times in coverage. And, it's not like necessarily Bobby would make those plays, but he's definitely, he's better. And that would have been a better situation to put Bobby in than KPL. So you have to wonder how big of a difference that made. But at the end of the day, I mean, like Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman gave up the winning touchdown. Like, they're looking at each other like, what happened? Like, these are two all-pros that you depended on, time and time again. They made the hugest plays, you can imagine. And that's the play it came down to. And it's like your two all-pros, two of your best defensive players, and that, they are the ones that ended up giving the play. So it's like, really, what the hell can you say? Like, your two best players essentially gave up the game-winning play.
The Panthers.
I don't know what to say to that. Sometimes players need plays.
Yeah, just to answer your question, the Panthers ran it 33 times for 135 yards, 4 yards per carry. So maybe kind of average. But then, I mean, the whole thing was through 3/4, Cam Newton, they had shut him down just like they had been shutting down quarterbacks last season. They had shut him down. in the way that, Cam Newton can be shut down, in a way that an offense that doesn't have more than one talented receiver can be shut down. And then that one guy, we talked about it at Real the Field Goals on Thursday, which is, they had Tyler, the way that Tyler Eifert could do what they wanted, and now Greg Olsen could just do whatever he wanted out there. 7 catches for 131 yards, the game-winning touchdown. He was inches away from 2 other touchdowns, and it didn't matter because the next most, Cam Newton had 269 yards, but the next most was Ed Dixon and Devin Funchess. Each had 24 yards. So it wasn't like they were getting beaten by some other player. They were getting beat by the one player that they knew
tight end
was talented.
Every game. God, I don't get it.
At least we don't have to talk about our tight end's lack of production. Jimmy Graham, 8 catches for 140 yards. You obviously felt pretty good about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like you can see the chemistry developing between those two. A lot of his yardage came on what Russell Wilson's really good at, which is, scrambling around and making plays. And, that, like, going back to what we talked about, Russell Wilson dropping his eyes and taking sacks, like, at the same time, it is kind of that's like his game really is trying to, like, escape and make plays on the run. So sometimes you kind of do have to take the good with the bad, even though it's extremely frustrating to watch. That being said, yeah, so, like, he and Jimmy Graham definitely appeared to, like, be developing some chemistry. He's looking for him, on those plays, and he's pulling the trigger on those plays. So that was really encouraging. I mean, there's a lot of encouraging stuff about this game. Again, like I talked about earlier, like, 3/4 of the way through the game, like, all the narratives are totally different. Like, Seahawks, there's definitely a lot of good things to be happy about, but then the fourth quarter, they completely fall apart. And so that kind of, like, overrides all the stuff that you're, like, kind of excited about, So I don't know. I thought that Marshawn Lynch had a good game. He looked pretty good. There's a lot of good things. I thought that Patrick Lewis played a lot better than maybe what Drew Nowak had been playing. So, like, maybe potentially that's, like, a good upgrade for them going forward. I don't know if he'll stay in there, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, if you can't put it all together, like, you are what your record says you are, or whatever. I mean, particularly this late in the season, like 2-4. Is pretty tough to get over the hump in terms of getting back to the playoffs. So even though the Seattle's obviously a really good team, still really a good team, they've put themselves in a really big hole. And like we talked about last year, like, the margin for error is now, like, 0. Like, you pretty much have to win the rest of your games to make it to the playoffs.
I think I try to be an optimist and a positive guy. And there are positive things to say. There are positive things to say, like, 3 of their 4 losses are to teams that still have not lost a game. They have lost to the Packers,
right,
and they had a fourth-quarter lead. They have lost to the Bengals, and they had a fourth-quarter lead, and they lost to the Panthers, and they had a fourth-quarter lead, and all those teams are undefeated. Right. So it's not like they're losing to shitty teams.
Exactly.
The other thing is that, is the defense a lot worse than it was the last 3 seasons? Yes. We went out there on today, they had Kevin Pierre-Louis playing for an All-Pro. So, I know KJ Wright moved in or whatever, but KPL was out there for most of the game, and I don't know how many games he's ever even played in before, and he's starting for an All-Pro. Frank Clark wasn't there. Jordan Hill wasn't there. Marcus Burley wasn't there. Ty Smith, they don't have a lot of their guys, even though most of the stars are out there. A lot of the names have changed from last year to this year, especially to this game.
Yeah.
Where those guys are out. I still think that maybe the Cam Chancellor holdout has, affected him a little bit. I think that, there are things where if they win their next 2 games at San Francisco and at Dallas, they go into the bye week at 4-4. I think they're still fine. That's kind of where I expect them to be after the last loss was, okay, I think they can get to 4-4. They should have won this game, and like I said on Thursday, I predicted them to win like the way that they were when they were up 20-7 as an easy win. But, if they beat the 49ers, who are, for all intents and purposes, a really shitty team, I think their win today just proves that Baltimore is worse.
What is going on with that team, by the way?
Yeah. I mean, if there's panic and freaks outs in Seattle, imagine I would much rather, it's much better than Baltimore. Yeah. They're getting their asses kicked to shitty teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's much different. But yeah, I think if they go in there 4-4, then they come out of that bye with 3 straight home games. and they're obviously going to have to start winning again. They've been a better second half team than a first half team, so we'll see what happens. But their second half schedule looks much better than one that includes, the fact that in their first 6 games they've played 3 undefeated teams. So it's not good, but there are positives to take away from it to make you say, yeah, this is still obviously. If the Seahawks do make the playoffs, it'll be the team nobody wants to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they make the playoffs, it's going to be interesting because they're going to be, most likely going on the road. It's going to be one of those things that's going to be a different situation than last year and the last couple of years, I should say. And, I mean, the dynamic has changed a lot. I think we all know that by now, for whatever reason.
Don't forget that, the division at this time is still being led by a team that's 4-2. They still play in 20.
They're only 2 games behind. I mean,
right.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, the season's not over at this point. And like you said, like if they go into the bye week 4-4, it's not the end of the world. They still can come back from that. Again, to me, it just means the margin for error is just very, very slim at this point. And if they're going to make a run for the playoffs, they got to get their shit together and figure it out fast. You know what I mean? So,
well, this is
end, but it's getting close to being like pretty darn close to being the end.
Not the end of the season, but sometimes I fucking wish it was, and then we could not have to. But
there's a lot of season left, Kenny. Head up. Up.
I think like if people want to feel better, think about the Super Bowl. That was a lot worse, right? Like, it's sort of like,
yeah.
If you really are like, oh god, I can't believe these games. Hey, that's not hurt as much as the Super Bowl, right? It's like if you get shot.
My heart is so hardened from the Super Bowl, Kenny. Nothing really can hurt me anymore.
That's true. I wasn't really devastated when the Seahawks lost. I was just like, oh, that keeps happening. That's fucking great.
Curious.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, this should now be called Reel in the Film Goals, and we'll just talk about movies. What's the last movie you saw, Danny?
Oh man, it's been a long time since I saw a movie. I think the last movie I saw was Trainwreck. Amy Schumer comedy, which was great.
I saw it. LeBron James. What did you think?
There's a funny A-Rod scene in that movie for people from Seattle. If you haven't seen that movie, have you seen it, Kenny?
I have.
There's a scene in it where the main character is a sports medicine doctor guy, and he's going around. He's at a party, and all these dudes are like really stoked that he knows all these famous people. So they're like, "Oh, do you know so and so, like the famous baseball player?" And he's like, "Yep." And they're like, "Oh, right," and like high fiving. Do you know so and so, the famous NBA player? High fiving. Do you know Alex Rodriguez? He's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Man, fuck that guy."
Yeah.
Like everyone in the world hates A-Rod. So I mean, if you're like really thinking about silver linings, like at least you're not A-Rod.
Right. Yeah. At least you're not a multimillionaire.
Wait, darn, that's not really what I was going for, but yeah.
How did you feel about LeBron James in that movie?
He's pretty much a terrible actor.
He had a pretty meaty part. He was in there for real.
I mean, he's like a terrible actor. I mean,
Speaking of meaty parts,
is that pretty clear?
He also had a naked John Cena.
Oh God, yeah, that was pretty odd.
That was really disturbing, but at the same time, like I couldn't look away.
Right.
Another thing about Amy, and I've never had to think about what it would be like to have sex with John Cena before, but then to have that scene with, and I mean, like, that's so, I don't know, it freaks me out just to think about.
This was a really seamless transition to Reel in the Film Goals, by the way.
It is, yeah, it's been working pretty well, and I think people would much prefer this than talking about the Seahawks.
Probably at this point, yeah.
It was I think it was just the anniversary of Little Giants coming out. Thoughts on that?
I've actually not seen that movie, so I can't.
You've never seen Little Giants? Man, only 90s kids will get this, man.
I mean, I was kind of a 90s kid.
Yeah, I know. But I can't believe that. I mean, what? You've seen Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah. Love Rookie of the Year.
Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't really remember it very much other than him like pointing to the crowd and everyone waving their arms like angels.
Rookie of the year,
Yeah, you just said that. I've seen that.
Little Big League.
No, I don't think
I
so.
didn't say rookie of the year, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, weird. I might be having a. I wonder if I had a concussion or something.
Maybe.
Okay, well, that was real in the film goals.
On that note,
The last movie that I saw, by the way, I go to the theater a lot because there's a $6 one. The last movie I saw was The Walk with Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
hmm
which was I wanted to see it because there were reports of people seeing it in 3D and then throwing up
oh God,
because
because it's
there's
like so high, like vertigo or whatever.
yeah, because you're like basically experiencing what it's like to be at the top of the World Trade Center when they were there and looking down, and it's on this rope. It's pretty. There were definitely times like when he was up there doing that, he did some moves that like definitely I was not okay with. Just like being. I mean, there was a lot of times when they were just standing on the edge of the World Trade Center at the top, trying to set it up. And then one of the guys was like a fear of heights or something like that, and then JGL made him come down and like help him with the ropes, and I'm like, there's no way, because I have a fear of heights. There's no fucking way would ever go out there, and I did not like the way that he was so cavalier about being 140 stories above the ground and just walking the stupid tightrope. It was a
Yeah.
stupid thing to do, but I didn't throw up, nor did I come close. There was a black guy, an old black guy, sitting next to me that was like, whenever he would do like the twists and the turns or sitting down, and he just kept on going like, "Oh God, no! Oh no!
That's
Oh
awesome.
no!" And I was like, "Yeah, I get it. I get it."
Man.
So The Walk, I would not recommend it. I give it. It was kind of corny. 6 Hawks out of 10.
Noted.
So
Noted.
Reel in the Film Goals. That's the end of this episode of Reel in the Film Goals. Subscribe on iTunes to Reel in the Field Goals, and that's it, man. The Seahawks definitely lost, and will probably continue to lose.
They may or may not continue to lose.
They may or may not. At San Francisco this next week typically has been a tough game, but we'll see. The 49ers aren't very good, but the Seahawks haven't really been playing that well either. They are 2-1 against teams that aren't currently undefeated, so there's something. And we will see what happens next week. They'll need to get a win to stay alive for the NFC West. I mean, I thought that this game would be pretty bad to lose, but I would say if they lose next week, it's pretty much a done deal on this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would not be good, though it will mean that we'll get to do more episodes of Real in the Film Goals. And just remember, think about the Super Bowl.
You asshole.